Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Translating Icinga Together webinar. So who are we? My name is Berim. I'm the COO of Icinga and basically responsible for daily operations here at Icinga. With me today is Foy. Foy is our community manager at Icinga and responsible for community communications. And Foy also has a fable for accessibility and therefore is really the right person to introduce our platform and our way of translating Icinga and maintaining those translations. Why are we doing this? Icinga has always been about empowering users, of course, in the monitoring field, and also, of course, through open source software, and also through open source collaborations. Over the last few years, we've seen people use Icinga in all kinds of environments and also countries all around the globe. But we also know at the same time that for some, language can be a barrier, whether it's for new users that are trying to understand the user interface of Icinga, or for teams that share dashboards or share responsibility for their monitoring environment. Icinga is being used also by large enterprises with multiple teams, with multiple languages, and therefore accessibility through language is a serious topic to us. And that's why we are launching this initiative, basically to make Icinga speak your language or the language of your teammates. One of the things that makes Icinga special, in my opinion, is our community. We've grown together for more than a decade now, and translations are just one other step in that spirit. It's basically about sharing ownership and also making Icinga better for everyone who's using it. In today's webinar, we will cover different topics alongside. We will have a look at how translations are managed at Icinga. We will see a walkthrough of our translation platform, which we use to manage those translations. We will hear a couple of tips and best practices on how to use it. And lately, we've been experimenting with AI to speed up translations, and we will also see how that works, what's the current state of that. And of course, at the end, we will have an open Q&A session, so we will cover your questions that you may have during the presentations or afterwards. So whether you are a developer, a translator, or just someone who wants to help localize a few strings, this session is for you. With that said, I would say let's get started. I will hand over to Foy. Foy will now show you how the new translation workflow works in practice, from setting up your account on the platform to translating your first string. By the end of the session, hopefully you'll see how easy it is to make a real contribution to Icinga.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm going to show you through the platform today, and as Berim said, we're going to start from position 0. So, like he said, the goal of this webinar is to get started on the platform itself. So I'm just going to hop in and share my screen. So you should now be able to see the default page on translate.icinga.com, which is where our translation software is hosted. We are using Weblate for that, like many other open source projects, which makes it really nice and easy for you to get in your translations, to have them reviewed, and have a nice overview of what's translated already and what isn't. So we're going to start by looking at what we have available here. So we have the different languages that we have translated so far. The dark green is all of the translations that are already approved. So those have been reviewed by other humans. We have the lighter green. That means that there is some translation available and it still needs to be approved to land in our web interface. And there is the rest, the light gray bars that basically mean there is still work to do. There are translations missing that could be improved upon. We can not only sort it by language, but also by the components that we have. So we have our different projects or the different parts of the Icinga web that still need translations. So we can see that our glossary is pretty far ahead, and Icinga web as our default module is also rather far, but there is still work to do, and we still need the help of translators like you might be. So anyone that speaks another language and wants to help can contribute. And in order to get started, you need, of course, an account. So in order to log in and get started, we want to sign in. So in the sign-in process, as you can see, there's only a sign in and not a sign up button. This is because we require a GitHub account to map you as the user to the translations that you help do. And in order to give you the correct attribution, we need some sort of authentication via GitHub, since all of your translations will land in the project with an attribution to your account. So if I click in the sign in with GitHub button, I also prepared this ahead of time, of course. I will be signed in with my user, in this case, a throwaway account to just show you the whole process from the beginning with a new account. So if you have a GitHub account, but you have not signed our CLA yet, which is the next step, we're going to walk through this now. Under Overview, you can see everything you need to get started. And in this case, we are going to have to look at this part here, how to contribute. In the how to contribute, you will find a note that you need to sign our CLA. If you click on that, you will be redirected to our website where everything is explained on why we need a CLA. And if we scroll down here, we are an individual contributor. I will click the link and it requires me to share an email so I can get the code that is required. I will send it to my Icinga email address, and off screen, I will now receive the email. I will now paste my URL. And since I'm using an incognito tab, it of course doesn't work as I wanted to. So I'll just drag over this screen, which will open, which is our CLA. So if you want to read through it, it basically explains how the licensing works, what is expected of you, what your rights are. And in the end, of course, you need to sign it. In this case, I will enter my name. I will enter the address. Of Icinga, so where we are located. And I will enter my GitHub username. The GitHub username is required so we can actually map the user that is signing the CLA via the email to the account that will be attributed. In this case, my throwaway account. I will sign it with my name, and then I can continue. I agree with the CLA that I've just read, and that's basically it. It might take a few minutes, but then my account will be verified and I can switch from the current state, which is trying to approve something with insufficient privileges, to the privileges that are required. I'm just going to wait for a minute or so until it updates. And there we go, quick and easy. And now I can start translating if I want to. In order to not spam our repository with some random throwaway account, because that is not the intention, I'll quickly switch over to my actual GitHub account so I can start showing you how it works without spamming our projects with a throwaway. So this is basically everything that is required to get started with your account. So all you need to do is a GitHub account to set up the CLA. And if you've done that, you will be able to start translating. I'm going to sign in with GitHub. And now this is my actual account, which has, of course, also signed the CLA beforehand. Okay, so now that we've got our account set up and running, how do we actually get started with translating? What is our starting point? We can pick a language that we can actually speak. In my case, that would be German as a translating language. I can see a lot of different strings once I click on it. In this case, we have some things fully translated, some things that need approval, and some things that are still unfinished. The first thing that I want to look at is reviewing a translation. So a lot of our strings or text that is in the software has already been translated and needs some review. So I'm going to choose this tag here, strings waiting for review. I'll click on it and I can see this page here, which is basically the page that gives me all of the information about one specific word or phrase that needs translation. So here we have the original string. So this is what wants to be translated, about. We already have a suggestion below, über, which would be, in my opinion, the correct translation to about. I can see the current state of it, where we have needs editing, waiting for review, or approved. I think this is correct, so I will set it to approve and then save and stay. Once it is approved, it changes to green. This is looking good, and the translation has been approved. So this was my first contribution to the translation here. If I want some more information, there are other things to look at. So on the side here, we see a section for a glossary. There are no entries for about, but if there are any words that are fixed within the Icinga space, like our status names, for example, those you could find in the glossary over here if it was included in the string. There's some more information about the string that we might require. For example, what component is it a part of? Is it maybe specific to the business process world? So this gives us some further context. We have different flags, and we have the source string location. If I click on any of these links, it takes me to the GitHub page where the string is originally from. So I can look at it with a bit more context. So I can see, okay, we are here in some sort of about controller. What is located around it? Okay, there is something about Icinga Web 2, which gives me more context on what I am translating here. If I click on the next link and check what's in there, okay, I see it's about Icinga Web 2. I can just walk through all of the different links and see, okay, open the about page, about, I can understand what it is that I'm translating. We have the age, when it was added, when it was last updated. That was just now when I clicked the approve button. And we have the file where it is located in. Also below here, we have some more actions that we can look at. For example, nearby strings, which is selected, well, typically around where the string that I'm trying to translate is. In this case, we are about Icinga Web 2, update your account. So it is something in the space of maybe user settings, maybe information material. I have the ability to look at comments. Right now, there is no comment below this translation. We'll look at comments a bit more later. We have the possibility to have automatic suggestions, which is like announced by Blairim, the AI thing that we are trying to integrate. In this case, DeepL, if you are familiar, is a translation software that we are using to suggest translations that still need to be approved by an by an actual human in order to make it into the product. So we are not just pulling stuff from an AI into the product, so it still needs to be reviewed by a human. We have the possibility to look at other languages in case you are trilingual or multilingual in general. You can also get a bit of a better scope at what has this string been translated to in other languages even. So I can have a look. If I speak any of those, I can maybe get even more context from that. And if I check the history tab, I can see, okay, the contributor joined, started working on this, and made this translation. So now we've looked at what we need to do a suggestion and approve this, but we also want to have a look at how to do a new translation. So for this, I'm going to navigate back to our front page, and I'm going to have a look at German again because I'm feeling comfortable with doing German translations, and I will have a look at unfinished strings. So this is again marked with a light gray marker here, which means there are still things that need to be done, and I will click on the unfinished strings. And the first up here is calendar. Okay, calendar. What is that in German? That would be Kalender. But before I suggest this or approve this, I want to have a look at what the context is. So I'm going to have a look at where in the code it is located. So we are here. We are translating a calendar in an alarms controller. So it seems to actually be talking about a calendar in the sense of dates. Again, this is in the same kind of scope. It looks all right. We are talking about days. Yeah, this is probably talking about a calendar in the way that we would imagine. We also have some more close translations, so a table, alarm, heat map, events. This once again confirms that we are talking about a calendar. The automatic suggestion also suggests this word, which is cool. I'm looking at all of the other things. Yeah, this looks about right. So I'm going to approve this because I'm a human. I know this is correct. I have done my due to check it. There's even another thing that popped up here, which tells me it has been translated before. The previous translation was also this word. So I would say this is cool, this is fine, and I'm going to save and continue. So I've now translated the word calendar. Now, the next thing that it asks me to do looks a bit more complicated. It has percentage signs, it has placeholders maybe. I'm a bit unsure about what to do in this case. So I'm going to read through our guidelines, which are under the Overview tab in the beginning. So if you look under the Overview tab, if I need any kind of help, I can check here. So what does it say? We have a style and wording guide here. And the style and wording guide also mentions things like the percentage signs. So I'm going to read through it. Okay, what kind of style guides do we actually have, since it's more complex than just a single word? So we are not supposed to write novels. This means that when we do translations, we usually do it from English to another language. Most of you will be familiar with the meme that German as a language tends to have very, very long sentences, very long words. So we need to maybe limit ourselves a little bit to write shorter translations in the German language, since the UI elements that contain those words or sentences do have to still fit within the boundaries of Icinga web. So we can't have a whole paragraph instead of a word of the original translations, since this is going to basically overflow, and we want to try to keep it as lean as possible so it still fits within the boundaries of the UI surrounding the text that we want to translate. We have a section about addressing the user. So we have a few messages that address the user directly with a you, for example. And in a few different languages, the word you is translated to multiple different words. German, as an example, has two different versions of you. There's a formal and an informal one. From what I know, there are languages that have up to like 14 or 15 different ways of saying you, depending on who you are talking to, what the level of politeness is, how old a person is, the gender of a person, their status in general. So we try to keep it as neutral as possible. If there's not just a single word as there is in English, we need to try to wrap our translation around to not contain that word that depends on politeness or something else. So since we don't know the user that is going to sit in front of the freshly translated Icinga web, we want to try to address the user as neutrally as possible. So instead of you can click here, we might want to translate into something like a click here is possible. To in the translated version, we might want to avoid addressing a user since we don't want to impolitely address someone who would like to be addressed politely, or the other way around. And we also have a section about placeholders, which is how we initially got to this page. So placeholders like the percentage sign or some more complex things are specifications or, well, placeholders for things that are inserted later. In this case, we need to leave those strings intact. We need to leave the percentage sign and the maybe cryptic letters behind it intact, since it will be programmatically evaluated and have some words inserted into it. So let's get back to our example. Something is not between something and something inclusively. How do we make sense of that? There are a few different ways, and I personally always like to check the string location first to see if we can figure out what that does. Okay, so we have this string here. Something is not between something and something inclusively. So we have a value, a minimum value, and a maximum value. Okay, it makes more sense. So let's say 7 is not between 8 and 15 inclusively. So we are evaluating the string and having a look at how this would be translated. If we need some help, we can always look at the automatic suggestions, and it suggests something steht nicht zwischen something and something einschließlich. I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the context that I've just discovered via the source code, and I think this is actually a pretty good translation. I'm going to accept it, and it is now in the translation here. We have left the percentage signs intact, so the numbers can still be inserted in the correct spaces. And yeah, this is how we translated something from 0 to now. I'm going to approve it. Since I've read it, I've checked it, it is good. I'm going to save it, and it is now green and working fine. All right. So we've translated, or we have approved the translation. We have done a new translation. We've checked the context. We have looked at how the AI does this. And next up, we can have a look at what other options and tags we've seen before. So I've looked at this overview page before. I've chosen strings waiting for review to just do some reviews of different translations. I've looked at the unfinished strings to start a new translation that hasn't been done before. And there we can see a lot of other things, most of them starting with failing check. So we have a few, let's say, quality control or collaboration features that also check if what you've suggested is fitting a few criteria. So we're looking at white spaces in the case of, is there a new line? Is there a space at the end? And it is missing in the translation. And the easiest one to have a look at in this scenario, I think, is double space. So if I click on it, you can very easily see the issue here. So we have a original word, and we have a translation that has 2 spaces in between the words. There is no reason for there to be 2 spaces in between the words. So I'm going to remove this since it was flagged for 2 spaces. The translation itself is fine enough. I've looked at it before, but we can also check it together. So we are in the space of InfluxDB. We are trying to verify something that is helping us establish a connection. And I know that this translation is accurate. I've removed the excess space. I am going to save it and continue. I can see the next one has the same issue. So probably some other translator just copy pasted some words in there that had already had a space, did another space to start a new word, and it's been caught by the system. So I'm going to remove the space, save and continue, and we go on and on and on. Now we're looking at a slightly longer text, and for my convenience, it's been highlighted. I'm going to remove the space and save and continue, save and continue. So this way you can check. Oh, yes, I want to leave the site. I'm going to go back here. So this way you can also help us check some failing, well, quality assurance parts, see if there's something wrong in the translation. And to hop on back on the AI topic, we also added something new, and this has got a yellow label, automatically translated. So these are all of the automatic translations that we've been loaded in from DeepL, and we now need your help to manually look over whether these translations are correct or are not correct. We've seen a few cases in the news lately where different brands have tried automatically translating everything unchecked so that words in, for example, the Microsoft space, Windows was translated to the word for window in another language and just appeared in their products as the window that goes outside of your house instead of the tool or the original name Windows. So we're trying to avoid cases like this where things are translated completely unchecked, which lead to weird translations or just wrong translations in the interface. So everything that our AI suggests needs to be checked by a human, and this is what we need your help for. So what's next? Now we've done some checks. How do those actually get into our product? How do they get into the next release for Icinga Web? So we have a hook that connects the translation page, the translate.icinga.com, the Weblate, to the GitHub repository of our localization. Let me have a look. There's the correct link. And I've already prepared one of the pull requests that happened in the past that really nicely show how our translations go into our GitHub projects and therefore into the next release of our Icinga web tools. So this is a pull request created by our Icinga bot. The Icinga bot takes all of the translations that happen in Weblate in our translate.icinga.com platform and tries to attribute or does attribute the original translators. So we can see a few people have authored. That's me, that's a colleague. So different people have authored those commits and Icinga bot committed them. So all you need to do is make the changes in Weblate and the Icinga bot in the background will translate those into Git and into the repository. So let's just look at my translation commit because I know I didn't do very much there. I just did a test if it works. So those are the changes that go in. So we have a deletion of the previous committer or the previous person that worked on the translation. We have inserted my information with attribution, and we have the change from an empty string to the string that I have translated. We have a lot of files changed, and you can see a lot of lines changed as well because the differences are rendered in .po files, which is basically a file type that includes translations and all of the meta information around those translations. So all you have to do is use the translate feature here in the website, and all of this happens in the background and ends up in GitHub in the repositories. And from there, we'll go into the releases of Icinga Web and share it with the public. Okay, so now you know how to make a translation, how to make those suggestions, how to correct them, how to start your own translations, how to get all of the context that you need for those translations, and you know how to go, or how the translations you do go into Icinga Web or the different modules that you translate for. We also said we're going to look at some best practices. Most of those I've already shown you in the translations that we've done already. Just to go over them again, if we have a look at the overview page, you can also read through this in peace and look at different tips and tricks. What you can do is look at previously translated strings and compare what you wanted to write or what you had as an idea to write within the search feature. So let's say it asked me about the string about. I can have a look at all of the instances where about happened, and I can see how it was translated. We have all sorts of different target strings in different languages. So we can have a look if we can filter this so we can find what we want to find. We have strings, labels, content, suggestions, and we want to only see approved dates with about, and there we can see different strings in other languages. What we also wanted to look at was comments that you can also find via the search function, or if you are in a translation, it appears in the comments below. Let's have a look at this one here. There we go. So there is a comment under this string. It's a read-only string because something happened here that needs to be manually checked by the maintainers. It's something that I've commented under this string before. So there was a discrepancy in different, in the strings that were the source. So there was a source string deleted contract, and the reply contract has been saved, and therefore it would make sense to change deleted contract to contract has been successfully deleted to keep it in the same style, basically. It's something that I've discovered when looking at the nearby string section, because we can see deleted contract successfully, and this one has been successfully saved. There's a discrepancy in the wording, and this is something you can comment under here. It helps if you add some surrounding information, some sources. In this case, I've added the source string links to all of the different discrepancies in the comment itself, so the maintainers of the project can have a closer look and maybe even change the source strings to match if something's up. So this is how you can use the comments and have a look at them. Yeah, I think this is pretty much all I had to show you for now. So to summarize, try to stay within the confines of the length of the things that you're trying to translate. Make sure you try to address the user in a way that doesn't differ too much between different kinds of addresses, and keep the placeholders that are within the string intact, so the translation, so the Icinga Web can still add the correct placeholders into your translation, and it doesn't break the entire text. Yeah. So this was a quick walkthrough through how our translation platform works. If you have any questions, if there are any questions in the comments or in the QA section, we can have a look at them now. Or if there's something.
Thank you very much, Boy. I think we currently don't have any open questions right now, so you'll have maybe 1 more minute or so. If you want to know something specifically, this may be your chance now to send us your questions regarding translating Icinga. To wrap this up, I think translating Icinga is a good way to contribute to a open source project, even without having to write code or writing documentation. It demonstrates in a really good way that contribution is not always about coding or writing documentation. There are plenty of other ways as well. And translations is something that makes a tool accessible to others as well. So it's super helpful for others. If you want to get started with translating Icinga, or if you already have started, I hope that you got the details today, how it actually works. If you come up with any other questions another day, please feel free to reach out to us through our website, through GitHub, through the forum. We are available to you. And with this, I think we can wrap this up. Thank you, everyone. Yep. Sure.
Sorry, I forgot to mention. In case the language that you want to translate into is not yet under the list of languages, you can also reach out to us. We will add the language manually. So it's not something that you can do within the interface of translate.icinga.com, because we do want to A, keep the list of languages clean, and B, it's a bit more of a manual process to add the language pack into all of the different projects. So if there's a language not yet in the list that you might want to start doing, you also need to reach out to us and we'll get to adding it. Yeah,
That's an important information. Glad you mentioned it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We will continue to do these webinars in the future every now and then. Stay tuned. If you are not on the newsletter yet, subscribe to it. It's one of our best channels where you can get the latest news and where we will also announce future webinars. We are planning future webinars for Icinga notifications, but also a webinar regarding Icinga Director and how to get started with it. This will come up in the next few months. So stay tuned, read our blog, subscribe to our newsletter, and most importantly, tell your friends and family about Icinga. Again, thanks for joining us today and see you the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming. Bye.